Hi guys, and welcome to the first video in my new Mechanic Mike's Mondays top tips here on DP Mechanics. So you've been in lockdown now for 11 weeks. You've successfully survived going through what can only be a really weird period in the UK. You may have parked your car up for a long period of time and you're about to return to work. What can you do? I'm going to give you a little example here on my BMW E39 530i on some of the top things that you should check before you go back to work. So, first things first, let's pop the bonnet and go from there. So, on my top tips of returning to work, the first thing I think you should check is number one, the oil. Running any car that is quite modern, you will not have to do this because it will be done from the electronic system in the dashboard. If you've got built-in iDrive on BMWs, Audi's driver system, Lexus, etc., any top-end high-end VWs as well, some of the smaller Vauxhalls, Fords, etc., that you can still follow this process. So number one, find your dipstick. It's usually indicated with something like this. Pull it, check your oil level, make sure that it is not at the minimum. If it is, top it up with whatever oil your engine needs, and if it's absolutely fine and it's not any weird colours or anything, then you're all good. Show the thumb. Good. My second tip is to check the power steering fluid. Now, most of these will say ATF, automatic transmission fluid, on top. But that is just the type of oil that goes in it, but you'll be able to see in your handbook or owner's guide that you'll be able to find the location of the power steering pot. Unscrew it, check it, make sure that there's enough in there. If not, top it up with ATF fluid or whatever fluid your manufacturer recommends, and just make sure you've got a good amount in there. The last thing that you want to happen is that's running dry, or it looks incorrect, it smells bad, it can cause damage to the steering rack in the cars. That's if you're in a hydraulic system. On modern cars, anything 2015 up, you'll probably be running electric power steering. So this is on older cars or anything that's still running hydraulic power steering. Most modern cars you'll have electric, you won't have a problem. Just give it a left turn and a right turn if it's electric, and that'll give you an indication that everything's okay. Next top tip, coolant. Make sure you check the coolant on your engine. Regardless of year and model, there will always be a coolant bay, there'll always be a coolant pot. It will either be yellow, blue, red, there'll be some weird colour in there. Make sure it's at the minimum level for when the engine's cold. It's really critical that you have enough coolant, and also just do a visual inspection of the engine to make sure that none of the coolant pipes are leaking anywhere, there's no drips underneath the car. If it needs topping up, primarily just you can do it as an emergency with water, but at the next service on the car, try and get the coolant changed. Top tip number three, make sure you've got a topped up water reservoir for your blowers. It's really important for doing that if you're doing motorway miles or if the weather gets bad as it did on Sunday. Make sure that that's topped up so that you can always clean the windscreen as you're driving. Many people will do all the main checks for oil and power steering fluid and coolant. They won't check that, they won't top it up, and they'll run out on the motorway and they'll end up driving with a dirty windscreen. So, next top tip, we should say, is bulbs. In the daytime, turn the bulbs on, make sure you've got low beams and high beams, make sure you've got indicator bulbs all the way around the car. Make sure that if you're running spotlights, you've got spotlights, and generally just make sure that light front and rear with brake lights and fog lights all work. It's not commonplace to see that bulbs will go when the car is not used for a long time and then suddenly gets a big jolt of electricity. The final thing is tyre pressures. Make sure that you check all 4 tyre pressures. Just make sure that you visually inspect the tyres first, that there's no flat tyres, they're not running low, and also while you're checking the tyres, check the brake discs inside. So a quick visual look through, you'll see that in the brake disc is pretty clean. If yours is a bit rusty, that's fine. Just give it a visual inspection. If it's rusty, it just means that you can't just hop in the car and go. You'll need to give it some bedding in time. and maybe just take it a drive the day before. And the big thing for people, I would probably say, well, there's two more tips to say. Number one, give the engine a visual inspection. Make sure that if you look down the side, as you'll see down here, it's nice and dry. There's nothing out of turn. There's nothing that looks wrong. Looking down the front of the engine, you'll see that the pipework, there's nothing that visually says. And big and important one is check underneath to make sure that there's no leaks. If you do a visual inspection, 9 out of 10 times, if it visually looks fine and you've checked on the coolant and the washer bottle and the oil and the power steering fluid, if you've got it, on most modern cars you'll just check the oil level on the dashboard in the computer and the coolant, you'll be fine. And the brakes, you know, just do all the standard checks. Just look around the car, make sure, use common sense. If you're driving home at night, make sure that all your bulbs work and all your indicators work, and make sure that you've got everything you need to make sure it's fine. But the big one that people will forget about, in 11 weeks, if you've not driven your car, will be the battery. Most times that the AA and people like that are called out is due to cars sitting for a long time and not being run, which decharges the battery. And then when people come after, whenever you get into your car, after a number of weeks, you will see that when you try and use the central lock-in, the battery won't work. You'll have dim lights inside. Maybe the central lock-in will work, but when you try and start the car, nothing will happen. It will just be that you'll turn the key and there'll be a lovely dead stop to it. And that is because you didn't run your car enough. And if that happens, you'll need to jump it, or you'll have a jump kit or something that will allow you to start your car. But that really are the top tips that you need to make sure that your car is absolutely fine. And that is the end of Mechanic Mike's top tips. Thank you for watching. Make sure you follow and subscribe to my channel DP Mechanics, and also go to facebook.com/DP_mechanics for my Facebook page, and there you can get some more top tips, posts about sports cars and other things about BMW and my Project E53 that's currently having an engine refresh. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.